All right, so Barbie is out. And more importantly, maybe a more significant cultural milestone is Ben Shapiro's review of Barbie is out.
This movie is not just a piece of shit. This movie is a flaming piece of dog shit piled atop an entire dumpster on fire, piled atop a landfill filled with dog shit.
Ben Shapiro has been reviewing movies on his Daily Wire channel for like quite some time now, and they kind of fall into two categories. There are the reviews where he just loses the plot and makes it all about politics that he doesn't agree with and doesn't even talk about the movie at all, which is what we have with Barbie. And then there are these reviews where he actually just points out why a movie didn't work for him, like logically or emotionally. And when he does that, he can actually put together a pretty compelling argument. I think the thing is here though is I started his 43-minute Barbie review the other day at work, and I just couldn't believe how intentionally obtuse he was being and how uncharitable he was being. Ben is obviously playing the algorithm hate train game, right? Like he's very keen to rag on it so his audience can rag on it with him, right? Like they all just want to sit there and go, oh, it's leftist propaganda, it's so bad, oh, the feminists are taking over.
I'm an adult virgin.
The thing I take issue with in his Barbie review is there was no version of him that was going to give it a remotely fair chance at all. Like he went in excited to hate on it, his producers went in with him excited to hate on it, and he left excited to hate on it. So I thought I would go through his review today and basically review his review. Before he posted his 43-minute video destroying Barbie, he made a post on Facebook and Twitter where he said,
My producers dragged me to go see Barbie movie.
My producers dragged me to see Barbie, and it was one of the most woke movies I have ever seen. My full review of this flaming garbage heap of a film will be out on my YouTube channel tomorrow at 10 a.m. So he went home, he made sets for this review.
This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN.
I strongly doubt that was a 12-hour turnaround. So I think he had this planned, he was ready to hate it, and that's what the review reeks of, all right? They were like excited to just shit on this movie. And as a result, I think the arguments he presents are really weak.
On every possible level, it is a horrific movie. The only thing that can be said for this film is production design. The production design is really nice. The costumes are really nice. Also, it's really hard to screw that up. It's really hard to screw that up because you literally have this to model after.
He's instantly trying to like discredit the one thing he likes about the movie, which is like the production design, by saying it's easy. I don't think it's that easy. They had to get some of the best production designers for this movie.
Sarah Greenwood, our production designer, Katie and her whole team have just done the most extraordinary job putting this together. A lot of the things you see are actually handmade. It's pretty incredible what they can do, how they can design things in miniatures and then replicate them.
The movie looks fantastic, and I think saying that this is like an easy job to do is really like cynical, and also just like, I don't think you're involved in movies. Like maybe don't.
Put aside all of the beautiful costumes, which is there for the ladies.
We're off to a good start.
Every joke that happens in this film happens basically within the first 45 seconds of the film. And then she drinks, but there's no actual liquid in the actual cup. Oh my God, because she's a Barbie doll. That's all the jokes. There are no more jokes for the rest of the film.
Not even like an accurate take. Like that's an opening skit for basically the first 5 minutes. And then a lot of the jokes for the rest of the film are actually based on like gender dynamics and gender roles and incel culture, as well as just Barbie's place in the cultural zeitgeist. Mattel is made a joke. Like, that isn't the only joke this movie has to offer.
So I'll tell you who the intended audience for this film is, and I can tell two ways. One, the previews on the film, and two, the people in the audience. So the intended audience for this film is moms and their 8-year-old daughters.
Ben Shapiro's point here is that he believes the movie is intended for mothers and their 8-year-old daughters, and that is it. I fundamentally disagree with this argument, and the only thing he has to substantiate this claim is the idea that before the movie screening he saw, they played a bunch of kids' movie trailers, and it's like before the screening I saw, they played a bunch of adult movie trailers. It's a family film. It is meant to be seen by everyone. There are so many jokes that work for adults that aren't meant for young children or young little girls. There are also a bunch of jokes that are very much intended to get a laugh out of the guys in the audience.
I mean, who thought it's a great idea? Let's bring on the people who wrote Lady Bird and Marriage Story to make a movie about a plastic doll.
That's what's exciting. That's what is exciting, all right? The fact that they've taken two of the greatest director-writers we have at the moment, and they're putting their efforts into a intellectual property cash grab movie. That's why people were excited for it. That's where sort of the Barbie Oppenheimer meme came from, is like people were treating it as like actual cinema. People were really, really excited to see what Greta Gerwig did. And his argument here is like, oh, you're getting really well-established, mature filmmakers to handle something for kids. Ugh. He's disappointed that instead of these filmmakers working on something drab and depressing or some like gangster movie, they're working on something like Barbie because he can't connect with it.
The basic sort of premise of the film, politically speaking, is that men and women are on two sides of the divide, and they hate each other. And literally the only way you can have a happy world is if the women ignore the men and the men ignore the women.
No, the final outcome of the movie was that a total patriarchy or a total matriarchy doesn't work, and people need to learn to find their own place in the world and coexist and work together. It was a demonstration that like a total matriarchy makes the men really unhappy and feel isolated, and then a total patriarchy that we have in the real world makes women feel really isolated and alone. And it's like that's what it was exploring. It was meant to be an exaggerated satire that either idea in either direction, done to its most dramatic conclusion, doesn't work for everyone. That's what the point was. It was very simple, and I don't know why he fails to understand that.
It does not end. Every scene is at least 2 minutes too long. Every single scene, every beat is 2 minutes too long. It is a bad film.
I actually thought the pacing was like really good. I was like, it was refreshing to me, especially after the 3-hour Oppenheimer, to just have a movie that just like moved by, but apparently not for Benny Boy.
Putting the politics aside, it is a bad movie. So why is it getting 91% on Rotten Tomatoes? Because the way that it works for the reviewers is if you have the right politics, and those politics are sufficiently slyly inserted, then it will get a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, even if the thing is just dreck.
This is like the argument that these like alt-right people love engaging in, is like the only reason this movie is successful is because it's super left and super feminist and super progressive. Anytime something with even remotely leftist leanings comes out, they can't even like get past it. Like they have to hate on it. And then anytime something comes out with like right-leaning politics, they fucking champion it because they're like, this is so good, it spits in the face of woke Hollywood, see it, see it, see it. And it's like, you do the exact same thing just for your side. It's such a dramatic like overcorrection, and it's also just like they don't even have the ability to realize that they're playing into it.
From the beginning, you know what this movie is going to be, and it's going to be a very cynical take on what Barbie is, which is so weird. I don't know why Mattel would turn over its IP to filmmakers who clearly hate the IP.
All right, pop quiz. Why would Mattel, the company that owns Barbie, offer Greta Gerwig, a very talented feminist director, the ability to helm a Barbie movie that is very intent on reevaluating Barbie's place in the cultural zeitgeist and also critiquing its impact on women in general? It's almost as if Mattel is smart enough to realize that they can simultaneously propel Barbie back into the spotlight while also acknowledging a lot of people's critiques with it. This movie is a perfect Trojan horse for Mattel to simultaneously correct some of their past mistakes and also usher Barbie into a new era. And I don't get how Ben Shapiro is being so obtuse in not realizing that.
Because that's kind of the message of the film, is that the Barbies are bad for the world.
So not the message, Ben.
And we get a 2001 A Space Odyssey flashback. Which again, who's the audience for this?
The 2001 Space Odyssey like flashback was the thing that got most like movie people excited for this movie. It was a weird, irreverent, like bold choice, and it obviously suggests that the audience for this movie isn't just 8-year-old girls and their mothers like Ben Shapiro has been saying.
It references 2001 A Space Odyssey. This is a movie made for moms and their 7-year-old girls.
That sort of joke at the start of this movie suggests that what we're about to see isn't just going to be a glorified toy commercial. It suggests that the movie's going to be something that has thought, effort, and wit behind it, all right? It's not just filmmakers that are like, yeah, we're going to make a commercial for Mattel. And he's like, oh, like Ben Shapiro's complaining that there's a joke that he understands and like finds intellectually stimulating here.
And the cinematography of The Godfather, it references 2001 A Space Odyssey. This is a movie made for moms and their 7-year-old girls.
No, alright? Because Ben's literally saying here all these deep cut jokes that are referencing really niche movies that I'm a fan of, but this movie's made for 7-year-old girls and their mothers. And it's like, well, clearly it isn't then. Clearly it isn't just trying to be for those people. If you're sitting there and identifying with a lot of the humor, like, he's holding the fact that the movie has humor that appeals to him and not just mothers and daughters against it. He's like actively upset that the movie isn't sticking to one lane. Because now he's confused as to who it's meant to be for and what he can actually critique. And it's like, dude, like, you're allowed to like it. It's like he's so intent on hating the movie, he can't even like acknowledge that something worked for him. He can't acknowledge that the set designs were good without being like, that was for the ladies. And he can't acknowledge that some of the jokes worked for him as like a male because like, oh no, this is a movie for 7-year-olds and their mothers and it's not meant for me. So how come I find some of the humor funny? It's like, dude, get a fucking grip.
There's a Citizens United reference. They say all of the members of the Barbie Supreme Court are women. And then they are speaking out about Citizens United, that corporations are not people. It's literally a Citizens United reference. Who is the audience for this? Who is the 7-year-old girl who's like, yes, I too have a very informed perspective on the Citizens United decision.
Why is Ben so bothered that this movie has like adult humor? Right now he's mad that they have a Citizens United joke. And it's like he's mad that this film has smart, intelligent humor that isn't just made for mothers and their 7-year-old daughters. Like he's annoyed because he wanted to drag this film for just being feminist drivel. And then he's like, oh, a joke that I get that maybe some of the audience members don't get. Just admit that some of the movie worked for you and you appreciated some of the humor. Like, just admit it. It doesn't hurt, all right? Like, it's not going to turn you into like a libtard. You're okay.
And we get a series of gay masturbation jokes. Again, there's an audience for children. They're talking about beaching each other off.
Oh no, think about the children. Think about the poor children. Oh my God.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Oh my God, it's a gay masturbation joke. Oh no, they said beach off. All right, kids have access to the internet nowadays, Benny boy, and like they're either gonna get the beach off joke or they're not gonna get the beach off joke. And if they get the beach off joke, the damage is already done, all right? They already know what it means. And if they don't, you've got nothing to worry about. But it's like, you know, fucking relax.
To beach me off first. I will beach both of you off at the same time. Beach both of us off.
Nobody's gonna beach anyone off.
Yeah, it's funny. I find it funny. It's like he's so triggered by like the gays that he just can't handle it. And it's like, I'm not saying it's like the best comedy ever written, but like, just fucking relax, dude.
Barbie has irrepressible thoughts of death. So again, at this point, you might be thinking to yourself, wait a second, isn't this a kid's movie? Isn't this supposed to be made for 7-year-old girls?
No, Ben, it's not. Like, the movie isn't purely meant for 7-year-old girls. I'd actually say it's a more adult-leaning, like, teenage-level movie. And yeah, obviously, like, kids can see it, but it's like he's so mad that the movie has, like, mature elements and is actually trying to be something more than just kids drivel. Like, he just hates it. Like, he can't handle the fact that there's any adult jokes or adult references at all. And it's almost as if he went in wanting to hate it, and then when he started seeing things that he likes or respects or went, oh, that was actually kind of mature, it's like, oh, well, now I need to attack it because it's like, this was meant to be for 7-year-olds. It's like, well, maybe it wasn't, dude. Like, maybe the fact that they're talking about all this feminism in interviews and making all these mature movie references, maybe it suggests that it is trying to be a bit mature. The only evidence he has for this is his story about the fact that the trailers before the movie were kids' movies. It's like, I don't think he has a really airtight argument here at all.
Right, one of the Barbies is a trans Barbie.
Oh no.
And this is treated totally normally, as though this is a female Barbie with a voice, again, deeper than my own.
He couldn't help himself. You know, there's a trans Barbie in the movie for like, what, 2 minutes of screen time? And he just got in the car and he's just sitting there and he's just having these haunting visions of trans Barbie. And he's like, oh, I just can't stop thinking about it. Why is there a trans Barbie in my Barbie movie that I don't even like and was never going to give a chance? I just have to say it. And then he made a joke about like the fact that the voice is deeper than his, which it isn't, but it's just like, he just couldn't help himself. He couldn't do it. He just couldn't do it.
It's both thoughts of death. And this,
you know, like it has no bearing to his criticism of the movie, but he's like, fuck it. I have to get a punch in. Him and Matt Walsh just sitting there like fucking up top.
Sports bar up top, Super Bowl.
All All right, I'm back. My electrician just came and caught me in my pink Barbie outfit, but he's gone now, so we're going to continue with Ben Shapiro's bizarre review of Barbie.
But not before she makes a joke about Ken and wanting to see the nude blob he is packing under those pants.
Somebody said that?
Perfect for 8-year-old girls, ladies. Mothers, just be warned.
Ben Shapiro is the one that made his mind up on this movie being exclusively for like 7 to 8-year-old girls. And now he's like mad that there are adult jokes. It's like the movie was never clearly specified to be a kid's movie. It obviously has a bit of edge and a bit of adult humor coming from, again, Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig. And it's like, he's just so mad because he made up his mind that this was like a kid's movie and that he didn't need to engage with it on an adult level. And then every time it tries to do something adult, he's like, you know, it's just pearl clutching.
And immediately upon arriving in the real world, Barbie is hit with an overwhelming tsunami of sexism. Like right away, boom, she walks in and a bunch of men just leer at her and say, "Give us a smile, blondie," which is something that no one under the age of 70 has said to a woman in the recent past. Give us a smile, blondie. Seriously? Aye.
All right, this is the first point I slightly agree with him on. The initial influx of very dated sexism felt a bit on the nose, and it's not that I think sexism isn't around in today's society, but it was the only point in the movie where it felt like the satire was sort of a bit clunky. As they highlight later in the film, modern day sexism is a bit more sneaky and a bit more of an undercurrent than these like overtly just gross men groping themselves in front of women type situations. That's like the only point I've slightly agreed with him on so far. And even then it's like, who cares?
You might have thought that what you were going to get was Ken gets treated with respect as a person and Barbie gets treated with respect as a person. And that's a better, nope, wrong. In the end, not to skip ahead, Barbie Land just gets restored and the men are still subservient. That's the best version of the world.
I don't think that was actually what we were meant to get from the ending. I thought the point of the ending was actually that like Ken was sort of fulfilling that Stepford wife, 50s, 60s housewife role where all he exists to do is just like simp for Barbie and like get her affection, right? I didn't see the message at the end of the movie to be that like, oh, the only right thing is for all women to be powerful and all men to be subservient, because I thought the point was she literally tells Ken to go find a purpose that is outside of her. And a lot of the men also need to do that. Like, I thought that was the point. It was more so just saying, like, we don't need to be defined by each other. We need to, like, figure out our own purpose and our own, like, quest in life. I didn't see it as, like, women are always right and that's the right way of the world. I thought it was just saying that, like, neither a patriarchy or a matriarchy is right. But apparently not.
And he goes to Mattel and all the members of the board are men. By the way, I'd like to see a corporate breakdown of the Mattel board. I'll bet I can find it. The CEO of Mattel for 30 years was a woman. So there's that. They pretend that like Mattel is all run by men. So I just now I want to know who's on the board. Okay, Chairman CEO is a dude. The board includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It includes 5 women. So it's 6 men and 5 women. Clearly patriarchal domination.
Oh, I think he's made a good point. I think he's made an all right argument there. I can't really argue the facts of this situation.
Just wanted to look that up just for the sake of, accuracy. Whenever I do these reviews, like, oh, you're taking the movie too seriously. The movie takes itself too seriously, guys. It pretends to be a comedy, but it's taking itself super seriously. Fine.
I don't think the movie's taking itself seriously. Like that's why I have to disagree. Like, he's got them on facts and logic, but it's like the movie's just trying to have fun. You get what I mean? And that's the core issue here, is the movie is actually trying to have fun and just be pulpy and campy, and he's treating it as like this manifesto of like the female versus male experience, and he can't handle it,
There's so many places in the script where it's basically like the writers they left a gap and they're like, we'll leave a couple asterisks, we'll fill it in later, and then later they got there and they're like, nah, we'll just skip right over it. Fine.
There's a running joke in the movie where they essentially do lampshading, which is that technique in writing where you kind of acknowledge an issue in your own script and then kind of like hush it away. Like a character will be there to go like, oh, isn't that convenient? And in this movie, the weird Barbie played by Kate McKinnon frequently says, oh, I know it doesn't make sense. Oh, I know the journey to get to and from human land doesn't really make sense. Like, yeah, like ignore it, just go with it. And it's like, it's very clearly just having fun. It's a means to an end. And this whole movie is full of those sort of jokes where it's like, you're not meant to be thinking logically. You're meant to just be feeling and laughing and having fun. And this waves in the face of like Ben Shapiro and just like the alt-right in general, where they just can't handle anything that's like even slightly emotional and like slightly logically removed. Like they just can't do it because they need everything to have like a factual science behind it. And it's like, oh, I just can't handle the fact that this movie is just trying to be funny. I can't handle that it's not an exact representation of the world we live in. Like
There's one good line in the film, and that is where Barbie is trying to contemplate whether she's a fascist or not, and she says, I don't control the railways or the flow of commerce. Now, there's only one problem with that line, as with the entire movie. There is no character consistency. Barbie is supposed to be an idiot bubblehead piece of plastic from Barbie land. How does she know what a fascist is? How does she know about the flow of commerce? Like, again, just in terms of character consistency, like characters who actually are the characters, makes no sense.
Oh, have some fun. Have some fun. It's a fun movie. You don't need to sit there and be like, how does Barbie know about fascist ideology? Like, dude, it's just... And also, actually wrong, because at the start of the movie, they very much show that the stereotypical Barbie, like Margot Robbie's Barbie, is actually at all these like press hearings and political campaigns, and they actually explain that there is like a whole world and system in Barbie land. So I actually don't think it's that much of a stretch that she would vaguely know what fascism is. He just can't fucking handle it.
And he keeps asking men about the patriarchy. And at one point, he asks a dude about the patriarchy, and the guy says, well, that's not really the way that it works here anymore. He says, really? He says, no, it still works that way. We just hide it really well. Again, you can't even present the mild other side of the film.
That was a funny joke. That was a funny joke, Ben. It was a funny, well done joke. It's okay. You're allowed to laugh.
Culminating in an idiotic line where one of the low-level members of Mattel is with the board, and Barbie is looking for a woman at the board, and the low-level man says, I'm a man with no power. Does that make me a woman? No, you can't parallel park. That's what makes you a woman. Okay? And in any case, an idiot man walks in and takes over the whole place inside of 2 seconds. Fine. So he takes over the entire place. We later learn that's because the women, they didn't know what was coming. We later learned they didn't have immunity. And the way that they get immunity is by learning to hate the men. That's the way that they have to learn to hate men.
All right, so this is like a big thing that I've heard about this movie, where like all these like really sensitive men are watching the movie and being like, oh, I feel attacked. This movie hates men, and it's saying that only women can be good and all men are bad. And it's like, if you can't sit there and have a laugh about like all the Matchbox 20 jokes, or all the jokes about like, I'm gonna sit here and play the guitar at you, or mansplain Godfather to you, like if you can't sit there and like remove yourself from it and just have a giggle, it means you're either incredibly sensitive or you are one of these people and you don't realize that you're the butt of the joke. It's like, ideally, the people that are paying to see Barbie are like self-aware enough that they can have a laugh at the tropes and the stereotypes it's playing with. Like, it's not saying every single man is like a mansplaining fucking idiot, all right? It's just saying there are a lot of them. It's having fun with gender stereotypes. Like, who gives a shit? Just have a laugh.
Okay, the Kens are about to have a vote to change the Constitution. Why? Why? Ken literally just sees power. He's a fascist. What the f*** is he gonna vote for? Why are they voting?
Because it's funny. It's fun. It doesn't need to make sense. It's funny satire, Ben. Like, yeah, all right, they don't need to go to Congress and vote, all right? Like, they don't need to do that. And that's kind of the punchline of the movie, is that they're all so busy mansplaining The Godfather and playing guitar at Barbies that they like lose the vote. Like, the joke, the punchline at the end of the movie is just sort of this joke of like, oh, it wasn't even that hard. They just kind of got distracted and we took our power back. Like, that's all it is. And I don't get why all these man babies can't just have a laugh at like other men's expense. All right? Like, it's playing with tropes of meatheads and like incels and like really childish man babies. And it's like, you're either a childish man baby and it hurts your feelings, or it's like, why can't you ever laugh? Like just have a giggle. It's okay.
And so now she plays it super stiff like it all. She sits down, in kind of 90-degree position like a Barbie would, and she keels over in the 90-degree position. And it would be funny, except she hasn't been doing it the whole film. Again, the level of inconsistency and bad filmmaking here is just off the charts. They needed somebody to actually sit down with them and be an adult in the room, and no one was there.
I strongly doubt that like the writer and director of like Marriage Story and Lady Bird really had all these like logical inconsistencies just completely go over their head. Probably the case is that they're just having fun, Ben. And like, I don't get it. Like, he spends his whole life just dragging other people, and then he can't just like switch off and enjoy a movie that has like intentional logic-based flaws that are part of like the humor. Like, he can't do it.
Including a few cutaway shots of Margot Robbie looking up adoringly at America Ferrera. She explains that it's super hard to be a woman. It's so damn difficult to be a woman. You know why? Because of the patriarchy, because of the men.
Ben Shapiro can't engage in any media that highlights any struggles or any sense of inequality at all without seeing it as like this massive attack on his existence and his place in the world. And it's like, maybe it isn't. All right? And it's like, maybe the men it's referring to aren't you. Like, it's your job to make sure you're not a piece of shit. And it's like, if you're being this defensive, it just tells me that like subconsciously you think you are part of the issue that they're talking about. It's like, just stop being part of the issue. Like, you should be able to sit there and just laugh and be like, oh yeah, some men are shit, and yeah, it sucks you have to deal with that. Like, just have a fucking giggle, man.
It turns out there are a lot of good-hearted men out there who like women and who want women to be able to live lives that they want. It turns out that many of us are husbands and fathers. Many of us have daughters. Many of us love the people we're married to. It turns out that that actually describes a huge number of Western men, that we are not your enemies. And yet the entire premise of the movie is that what actually happened in the feminist movement is that women seized the power away from the men. I'm sorry to break it to you, ladies. It ain't true. It ain't true.
It's not saying that like good men don't exist and like men and women can't coexist. It's like he's putting all this bias going into the movie. And so anything that puts like a woman in a position of power or has a joke at the expense of any man at all, he's just like, no, I can't, no, because we helped women at one point, and this is just totally, like, it's a satire that's looking at the needless conflict between men and women, and it's like, he can't even, like, sit there and go, oh, I'm a good man, I have a wife, I have a daughter, I try to treat them well, this is a fun satire poking fun at the immaturity of certain people, because he feels attacked, like, he can't remove himself at all. He's like, this must be at me. This must be about me. Men can be your husbands and the fathers of your daughters and like blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, okay. So in that case, take your daughter to the movie, have fun and shut up. Like, why are you so bothered? It's like, he can't sit there and go, oh, maybe the men that are being made fun of or being poked at here aren't me. Maybe it's attacking a certain type of man that I am not. But it's like, he wants to align himself with all men or something. I don't get what this angle is. Like, it's like when Promising Young Woman came out and people were like, oh, it's suggesting that like all men are sexual predators. I hate how it portrayed men and like there were no good men. And it's like, well, no, the movie was strictly about predatory behavior from men and like a woman trying to like seek justice on that. The same way Barbie is specifically about like dumb man babies. So every guy in the movie is going to be a dumb man baby, and that's okay. Because it's satire and you're meant to have fun. And it's like, just relax, Ben.
And they unbrainwash them. How do they unbrainwash them? Well, they tell them truths like, any power you have must be masked under a giggle. I have a question. I mean, I work with a lot of women. Do they feel like the power that they have has to be masked under a giggle?
Ben Shapiro's argument here is like, oh, the way that women have to act in the workplace in Barbie world aren't like the women that work at the Daily Wire. That's not what they have to do. How come Barbie Land is different? And it's like, because it's Barbie Land, Ben, and not the Daily Wire. Like, fucking hell.
One of them says, we have to reject men's advances without damaging their ego. Or theoretically, you could just reject men's advances and damage their ego, because what do you care?
If they damage their ego, the men won't then comply because they will like exile them. So they need to make sure they don't damage their ego to keep the men on side. It's not that hard to understand, Ben.
You have to pretend to be confused about money. Is this a real thing? Like, do women pretend to be confused about money so the men will explain it to them?
No, the joke here isn't that women want to pretend to suck at finances so men will mansplain them. The joke here is that they need to distract the men, therefore they are inviting all these character flaws to come center stage. And by being like, hey, can you explain finances to me? The men are so willing to mansplain to a woman that they'll get distracted by what's actually going on. Like, it's not saying that this is what women want to do or have fun doing. Like, it's saying that, like, men really like to mansplain. Like, that's the joke, Ben.
Including Ryan Gosling hitting on a trans woman, meaning a dude who has a voice deeper than Ryan Gosling's, which is an actual scene in the film.
Fucking, he can't help himself. He has to destroy the trans any chance he gets. He just can't fucking, he can't give him a break, can he? Just him and Matt Walsh. What is a woman? Like, fucking hell.
And that turns into a musical number. What does any of this have to do with the plot? Nothing. Literally nothing. It is just a 15-minute digression because they wanted to insert a crappy musical number with not particularly good dancing.
The 15-minute musical number that is meant to be shitty and meant to be a joke and meant to have bad choreography is meant to be funny and overly long and drawn out and stupid because they get distracted singing this silly little song full of self-pity that they essentially just lose the battle. Like, that's part of the joke. I don't get what he's missing. Like, all of it's very intentionally stupid. Like, have fun.
This is all topped off by Issa Rae calling somebody a motherfucker. Again, perfect for your 7-year-old girl who loves Barbie dolls. Just perfect for her.
Oh my god, kids have heard swear words before. They've heard swear words before. This one's bleeped out.
Ending number 1 is we find out that Ken is going to live apart from Barbie and he's going to find himself in being Ken. Ugh, the utter joy of self-exploration. Next.
Yeah, that's a good message, Ben. You need to know who you are outside of the partner you're fucking simping for. That's not like a shit message. I don't know why he's so upset.
He's now in Barbie Land. We don't know why he's there or what he's there to do, except that we need Will Ferrell in the movie to provide no laughs. He doesn't provide any laughs.
Admittedly, I did think Will Ferrell was a bit unfunny in the movie. It was the only like jokes, humor that weren't working for me. So I'll meet him on that.
Evil capitalist. She's making money off of Barbie because, again, Mattel are bad guys, but they're also the good guys. But they're kind of the bad guys, but they're mostly the good, but they're a little bad.
I actually think that's meant to be part of the joke. I think part of the joke is meant to be that Mattel doesn't know what they want, right? Because Mattel spent years making a doll that did actually convey and portray unfair body standards, and now they're pushing a feminist movie funded by them, critiquing that very heavily. So the joke here that Will Ferrell is constantly flip-flopping on whose side he is, what side of the political spectrum he's on, and who he's trying to help isn't that silly of a joke. It's almost Mattel poking fun at themselves for being so wildly inconsistent with their politics. I don't know why Ben isn't almost realizing this and going, ha 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 ha, yes, they're in on the joke about how self-aggrandizing they are. He just hates it. He can't even be in on the joke here that like, oh wow, Mattel are actually acknowledging how hypocritical they are. Because it's like, if you acknowledge that, then you have to then also acknowledge where you're being a hypocrite. And it's like, he doesn't want to do that.
And then at the very end, they shove in this little nostalgia play in the hope that they can buy back the audience at the very end of the film. And Barbie decides that she is going to be a real woman now. Now, when she goes, that's ending number 3. There's still one more.
So the movie's message here is that like Barbie isn't like a real person, right? Like, she doesn't have proper emotions, she can't give birth, she can't have an actual career. Like, there's a bunch of things that she can't do that are part of the human experience. And then she has this like vision of like the best of what being a woman and being like a real person has to offer. And like, it's very moving. And I don't know why he can't just sit there and go, wow, what a touching montage of mothers and daughters and life. Like, why isn't he watching that and thinking of his wife and his daughter and just like moved? Like, I don't understand why he has to sit there and be like, oh, this is fucking bullshit and they're trying to win us over and it's like a totally condescending after all the men have been portrayed terribly. It's like, fucking just chill, man.
That's it. Like, it all just boils down to a lady at the gynecologist. That's female power. Female power is Barbie goes to gynecologist. Which, I don't know about you ladies, but that seems like that's not like the most feminist message. That lady parts are the entirety of the lady. So excellent job.
I think it was just a joke. I think it was just a joke. They already had the real life motherhood footage montage that like was very moving and very like, here's what it actually means to be like a woman in the real world, and here's why you deal with all the shit you deal with to get to these moments. And Ben Shapiro shat on it. And then they end the movie with a cheap joke that basically is saying, oh, now that you're a real woman, you have to do these things you don't want to do. And like, he's sitting there being like, oh, this is fucking sexist and gross and I hate it. It's like, you don't give a shit. He doesn't care. He's been shitting on all the feminist messaging throughout this whole movie. And then like his one chance to be like, actually, this is bad feminism. It's like, you don't give a fuck. You just want to shit on the movie.
Well, because this is a movie where hundreds of millions of dollars will be expended to get people to watch it. It has a heavily political message. It is explicitly designed to divide men from women.
Look, I don't think this movie is explicitly designed to separate men from women. I think it's meant to empower women, but I don't think it's actively shitting on men. Shapiro's level of like, oh my god, there's an imminent threat to like me and my wife and my daughters and any relation I'm gonna have with any woman ever because this movie exists. It's so like defensive for literally like no reason. This movie is not going to be the deciding factor on how the gender divide actually unfolds. And I don't know why he's so scared of this fucking sweet little movie.
I honestly, just as a piece of film, this sucker goes in like my bottom 10 ever. Ever. It is that bad.
I don't think this is one of Ben's top 10 worst movies ever. He has to be being hyperbolic here. Like, there's no way.
Because the acting, half the time, makes no sense.
Rockstar attitude, baby. I know it's driving you crazy.